So if you are in the market for a premium American-built Fender Jazzmaster, the American Original 60s is the best used value that you can get right now, with these things being priced as low as 1,400 on Reverb. And I've got one here in ice blue metallic. This one is from 2020, 2 years before they discontinued this model. And I'm going to tell you a number of the reasons why this might be the perfect Jazzmaster for you. Now, the American Original 60s Jazzmaster replaced the American Vintage 65 back in 2018. These came with alder bodies as well as nitrocellulose finishes. Now, unlike the previous American Vintage reissues, the American Original 60 series put a bit of a modern spin on the guitars by giving them 9.5-inch radius fretboards instead of the typical 7.25-inch radius, as well as the introduction of the narrow, tall, or vintage tall frets that Fender have continued to use for their American Vintage reissue series up until today. Now, there weren't many other changes from the American Vintage 65 series. Aside from that, both guitars have angled neck pockets, so it removes the need for having a shim. They both came with the locking AVRI vibrato system, as well as the threaded saddle bridge. These also came with your pure vintage 65 pickups. You've also got your typical cloth covered leads, your CTS pots and mini pots, your Switchcraft 3-way toggle and input jack, as well as your rhythm circuit switch. Now, one other thing to mention with the American Original 60s is that they did revert back to having a polyurethane or poly undercoat on these. Folks had complained on the American Vintage 65s that flash coat nitro process that they had been using for that series was a little bit too brittle, a little bit too easy for that paint to flake and chip off. So they returned to it. I found that the finishes on these are quite nice. They're definitely not as thick of a finish as those found on the American Vintage 62 models. This one has definitely got to be the chunkiest American Vintage series Jazzmaster neck that I have ever played. When I measured with my calipers, this one measured about 0.83 at the first fret and 0.985 at the 12th fret, which makes this very, very chunky. You're almost at 1 inch depth on the 12th fret, but it is still a very comfortable neck to play. Now, just like the American Vintage 65, this one comes with a bound neck as well as pearloid dot inlays. Prior to this, the only times you would see a 9.5-inch radius on one of these necks is through special runs such as the Thin Skin series that you could have bought from Dave's Guitar Shop or Wildwood Guitars. So that change towards a more modern sensibility was definitely up the alley for a lot of folks, especially since 7.25 radius is not for everyone. Now, knowing me, that's my personal favorite. I'm more of a chording type of guitar player, a rhythm guitar player, and doing lead licks only here and there. So for me, 7.25 radius is home, but this is not actually that much of a difference, at least to me, when you actually take a look using a radius gauge to see the difference between 7.25 and 9.5-inch radiuses or radii. The difference is shockingly small, right? But it is subjective. It's all in the feel. And so a 9.5-inch radius is for folks that maybe do a lot more leads, maybe do a lot more bending up the neck. Maybe you've experienced, for one reason or another, on a 7.25-inch radius neck, that maybe you were choking out in the higher registers when you had set the action to be low. For me, it always comes down to the setup. If you've got your setup dialed in right, you shouldn't be dealing with choking out issues even on a 7¼ inch radius neck. That said, it definitely is easier to do those bends on a 9.5-inch radius neck. Now, I opened up the video, unlike a lot of my other videos, by talking about the value proposition of this Jazzmaster, especially because for the first time in a long time, an American Vintage Series Jazzmaster, which this technically is coming in on the used market. And I'm not talking about Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. I'm even talking about Reverb. There are two of them sitting up there right now, coming in right around that $1,500 mark, which is awesome to see, especially in this economy, as compared to an American Vintage 266 Jazzmaster, which, yeah, these can be had sometimes for less than $2,000, but it's not super common. Buying one of these brand new is going to run you close to, if not over, $2,700 after taxes. The main differences between these two, obviously, are aesthetics. Some people absolutely love the block inlays along with the binding on the American Vintage 2. The American Vintage 2 also has a significantly slimmer neck, especially up here at the 12th fret. The one that I have here measures right around 0.925, which is a lot slimmer than the 0.98 that you've got on this one. So if you like a slimmer taper neck, unfortunately, the American Original 60s Jazzmaster is probably not going to work for you. Now, this is typically the part of the video where I'd be doing a sound demo, but there are a lot of really fantastic reviews of this guitar already on YouTube. So I'm just going to skip ahead to my final thoughts on this and why you might want to get this Jazzmaster. If you've tried other Jazzmasters before and have always longed for a more chunky and significant, full feeling C-shaped neck, this one is definitely the one for you. If you've had issues with 7¼ radius, or you didn't quite dig the really small vintage size frets, these narrow tall or vintage tall frets are a fantastic compromise, as they definitely allow you to do those bends a bit easier than you would be able to on a vintage accurate model. And finally, the quality control on most all of these that I have serviced and played over the past couple of years have all been great. I have never seen any issues with fretwork or the nuts or any of the electronics or anything. They have all played really great and sounded good. If you just do a good setup on them, you can even get on with that original threaded saddle bridge. So at $1,475 or $1,500, if you can get one of these for that price, it is an absolute steal and will likely be a keeper in your stable for many years to come. And yeah, anyway, I hope this was helpful for you, especially if you have been in the market for the perfect Jazzmaster for you. As always, if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell for new videos as soon as they drop. And don't forget to follow Totally Wired Guitars for more offset guitars buying tips.